Well, I've cleaned the kitchen to get ready for this first project. I'm gonna get some cold water going in here, and here is what is happening. So my potatoes are starting to sprout. However, most of the potatoes are still super firm, and they're in all these black bags here. They've done really, really well. I am gonna save some in order to be planting them out in the garden, but the rest of them, I need to process them before they go bad. Well, because I don't wash my potatoes after I get them out of the ground, we let them dry for a little while, then we knock off all the dirt and we put it in bags. So it's not too terribly bad, because when Cody and I picked them, it wasn't muddy, and therefore the potatoes were not super filthy. However, we do have some bad spots, and we will cut all of that off. Here we are. This is the second rinse, but I've scrubbed the potatoes this go round. Okay, all right, let's start here. See, this is, look at the color. They are so dark. So some of them have purple flesh or purple skin, white flesh. Some are purple and purple. Let's see what this guy is. Oh, he is multicolored inside and red, like a deep red. And I'm just gonna process them down into a size that I would want in like a bite. All right, I have this first bowl done. So I'm gonna rinse these again under cold water, and they're gonna get 3 rinses, and that's gonna help get rid of some of the starch that would be in the potatoes that we don't really want to can up. And then from here, they're going to go in my big stock pot over there, and we're going to boil them for just 2 minutes before we can them. So it's been about 5 minutes. I went and chopped the rest of the potatoes. So I'm going to strain and rinse again. I want to show you something. So this is the second soak, right? And look how clear the water is now. So even though there's these super colorful potatoes, it is giving off the starch and the color that's on the edge. But we're gonna let these go for about 5 more minutes. I wanna grab some. All right, so I ended up soaking everything in the pan that we're gonna boil them in. And now I don't have a colander big enough to strain them. But what I wanted to show you as we move to the last and the final rinse is the water is completely clear, even after soaking. And that is our indication that we're actually ready to process these potatoes paste. So by starting the potatoes off in cold water, as opposed to just dropping them in hot water, they will begin to cook more evenly. So we're gonna get the potatoes in here, cover them with cold water, and then get them on the stove. So we have shut off the potatoes. They went until about 2 minutes and then it was boiling over. And so I've just shut them off, and what we can see now is the water has a little bit of darkness. If I can find, so these potatoes that were super, super dark purple in dye, they've given off a bunch of their dye. It's in the water now. And so they may turn the potatoes that we can colors, but that's okay. But everything's losing some color, but we're gonna just spoon these out into jars. We're doing quart-sized jars because our family is large enough that when I open a jar, a quart size is going to be better at my house than say like a pint. We really wouldn't use a pint size jar. So we want to just get it right up there to the rim. Maybe 1 or 2 more. Okay, and then we're gonna fill these with water. To each one of these jars, I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And because potatoes are a low acid food, that is the reason they have to be pressure canned, and they're not being pickled. So they're not being put in some sort of vinegar or sugar type brine. So they don't qualify like a pickle would, or like your jams and jellies that are high in sugar. All of those are water bath canned, but potatoes have to be pressure canned. We're going to bring the water up to the 1 inch mark, which is just below. We're gonna use a chopstick to debubble. Look how clear that is. Beautiful. And then I have clean towel, lid. Ring. Just finger tight into the canner. Okay. All right. That way you can see my canner is massive. It holds 14 of these quart-sized jars, and so it's an all-American canner. So we're going to use a little bit of oil on the rim. Read it. Okay, so there we go. Twist, and then opposite sides up. Okay. We're the struggle bus getting the lid on a little bit. So we do opposite sides. And we're gonna start the tip, get the canner going. We're gonna let it vent for 10 minutes, and then we're going to put our weight on it. I went ahead and put 5 quarts inside the countertop canner, and it's on exhaust right now. It builds pressure and it counts down on its own. I do try to keep it out from underneath these exposed wood shelves, but this has 8 minutes to go on it. And then I'm gonna turn it to airtight, and then this will do all of its own stuff. This, I don't know if you can see, but it is starting to build pressure and steam. So this we're gonna vent for 10 minutes, and then we'll put our weight on this. Okay, so this is done. Put that on airtight, and then this has vented for 10 minutes, so I'm gonna put my weight on. That was loud. And then the pressure is gonna come up, and I'm gonna watch it, and then this is going to go for 40 minutes. Okay, so my timer is going off, so I'm just going to shut off the canner. This one already went off, and I just unplugged it as soon as it set off, but I'm not moving. I'm not exhausting anything. We're gonna let everything come down to 0 pounds of pressure all by itself without moving a thing. I wanted to show you how the potatoes ended up. Now, this one was one of the bottom jars. Our water is hard, so I'm just gonna rinse the jars with a little bit of vinegar and get the lids popped off. But can you believe that? For the fact that there are potatoes in here that are so dark, and we managed to get clear liquid, everything's sealed. We're gonna pull off all of the rings. I'm gonna wash the rings, and I'm going to label and date all these jars of potatoes. This one siphoned way too much, so we're gonna cook that because they've just come down to room temperature. And this, I've never had this happen, but the lid blew out. It did seal, which is wild to me, but it is so damaged that there's no way I'm gonna put that on the shelf. I'm gonna start soaking. I have eggs from just this week and they are filthy and they are gross. And so I'm gonna rinse them, float test them, look for cracks, anything wrong or flawed, and then wash the eggs. And now we should have enough eggs collected up to run the freeze dryer with just eggs. So raw eggs, we're gonna freeze dry a whole 5 things in there. The goal for me was I didn't really want other flavors in there. So I know with freeze drying, if you say freeze dry onions with something, the other something is going to smell and taste like onions. So for the eggs, I wanted to freeze dry nothing but eggs. And so I'm gonna get these all washed up. So all of the eggs have sunk to the bottom, meaning they are all nice and fresh, none of them. So when an egg sinks to the bottom and it lays like this, that's a fresh egg. When it tips up like this, that's a couple week old egg. And when it floats, it's gone bad. So everything is sunk to the bottom and sideways. And Wyatt just went out to the coop because they are laying like crazy. And how many more?
8 more.
8 more just today. So these are immediately just gonna get thrown in and washed. So I have a large size freeze dryer. These are my trays. And I'm getting conflicting reports. So everyone says a dozen, and then someone said they put 2 dozen per tray. So I'm gonna start out with a dozen, and then we're gonna pre-freeze. But what we're gonna do is we are going to crack the eggs into the Nutri-Ninja here and just break them up a little bit so that when it comes time to reconstitute the eggs, from all the videos and everything I've watched, I like best when it just turns back into a normal egg and you don't have like the whites and the yolks and it's all like weird. So we're gonna start with a dozen and see where we go from there. 12. So I can see this one egg has been fertilized. So obviously the new rooster is doing his job out there. So we don't want to whip up the eggs, but the understanding is in the freeze dryer, the way that it works is that they'll puff up. So you don't also want to overfill the tray. Okay, so that's 1 dozen eggs. Can you see? Okay. So I think with what I'm looking at, that I don't want to do, I'm gonna do 6 more. Let me try that. So this would be 18 eggs per tray. Let's see if we like that. Hey, stop. Both of you. All right. Okay, 18. I'm not gonna super like try and pick it up and show it to you, but 18 looks the best to me. It's not overflowing and it gives some expansion. And so I'm gonna put my lids on, and then I'm going to pre-freeze these eggs for at least 4 hours, if not overnight, before they ever even go into the freeze dryer. I was able, off of just fresh eggs today, to do 4 of the trays, and now I need to do the 5th tray. And so I just grabbed these out of the refrigerator. I just wash them after maybe a week or so. I do all the float test, all the same things, and then store them in the refrigerator. And it has taken me less than a week to collect enough eggs to fill the freeze dryer. I went ahead and started the freeze dryer. They're not completely frozen, the egg things, but they're not moving around, and that's all that matters. And I just have to move on with my life. And so I'm gonna get these into the freeze dryer, which is gonna take about 24 hours. So I'm not even sure this will be the finished product in the video, but I am so excited to bring you back when they are done and show you how they turned out, because I have something else I want to freeze dry as well. Some potatoes and some homemade sausage, and do like a whole breakfast freeze dried meal while we go fishing or something like that. So I will definitely show you how these turned out, even if we don't make it to that today. All right, so all we have to do, it's a little dark down here, is I pre-froze this for 15 minutes, says low trays. All right, final tray in. You close it here, it says close the drain valve. Done. Continue. Voila, that's all it takes to loading a freeze dryer. Guess what I have? Okay, we are working our way through the freezer. What Erin and I are really concentrating on this week is how many things can we actually move out of the freezer, get them shelf stable, meaning canned or freeze dried or whatever the case is, and then just kind of working our way through some different things. And what I have is, yes, they're trash bags, but they're unscented. 2 bags, and what's in here are some big moose leg bones. And what we want to do is pressure these down to cook them a little bit quicker and make some really good moose bone broth. And we're gonna do that. Wyatt is here, he's gonna help me. He's gonna cut these down with the Sawzall. We're gonna put them under the broiler. I'll take you along. Of course it's raining. So I got all these bones from the neighbor, and don't worry about them. There's some hair and some meat, but we're going to wash these really well. We're actually gonna be cooking them in our giant pressure canner for 2 hours. So Wyatt's gonna help me by cutting these down into pieces that will fit into the pressure canner and then exposing the marrow. It looks weird that we're using the grill grate, but the blade can kind of go between the grates and we can wash off the grill. All right, so I brought the pot in. And now I'm going to just rinse or soak all of these bones for just a few and make sure we don't, like hair and things like that can make everything rancid. So we really want to make sure that the bones are nice and clean. We're not worried about scraping what meat's left off of them. That's fine, that's just flavor. But I am gonna fill this up and soak the bones for a few minutes. Oh gosh. Oh, that's a lot for me. Okay. We're gonna wash these bones. My camera shut off, but I'm just gonna dress these simply with some avocado oil and then some salt and pepper. I'm going to roast these in the oven at 450 degrees for about 45 minutes. All right, so we're about 30 minutes in, so I'm going to reach in and just rotate the bones. We're gonna get these straight in to the pot. Look at that. All right, so we have all of that goodness in the pot, and I'll show you before I put the lid on. I'm gonna add some apple cider vinegar. This is some raw apple cider vinegar that I get from Azure, but I get it in a 5-gallon bucket. So I just move it to jars that make it easier for me to handle. This is not necessary, but I do like to add aromatics, if you will, to my broths or stocks, whatever you want to call it. So I have some frozen carrots that need to be done with. And then from our garden this summer, some frozen celery. And this isn't a ton, it's just a little bit of flavor. And because all of this is gonna get strained out, we don't worry about skins or anything. And so I decided I would clean out my bucket that holds onions and such, but that's a shallot. I will cut the ends off of the garlic. But I have a bunch of like half-used cloves of garlic, or half-used heads, I guess I should say. And then I don't have any yellow onion. I have a purple one though. And then through this tiny little yellow onion. So I'll throw him in. And then looking up here, I'm gonna do a few bay leaves because I love them. Then about a handful, a palmful of black peppercorns ×2. And then just a good pinch of some gray Celtic salt. Underneath is all of the bones. Covered it with a little bit of aromatics, and then we are going to turn our pressure canner into a pressure cooker. We are going to line things up here. and start heating. We're gonna seal our cooker, and then once it starts venting, I will put it under the pressure at that point. We will let this go for about 4 hours is how long. All right, so this has gone for about 4 hours. So I'm just gonna shut it off and let the pressure come down. It's 10 o'clock at night, so I'm gonna be a little bit quiet, but I decided to push through and strain this broth so that I can let it sit overnight. The pressure is down to 0. I've been able to open away from yourself. Oh, not bad. The pan is just really hot. Okay, so this big metal bowl. That one fell apart. And my giant stock pot with a colander. And on the colander, this is a clean rag, but I want to catch everything, even maybe like some little bone bits. And so I'm going to start pouring some in here and then scooping. You get it. All right, it's now 10:40, but I literally scrubbed the canner, washed all of the dishes so that tomorrow Jessica will thank tonight's Jessica. But look at this. This whole stock pot is broth, and it is so dark. But can you see, like, this whole top layer is fat. So we're gonna wait for that to separate out, and then I'm gonna skim that off, and then we'll be able to can the rest of the broth. There shouldn't be too terribly much fat or lard at the top here. It's in about the 20s at night, and so I'm just gonna set this out on the porch with a lid on it to protect it, and we will continue this process.
So we told you we'd bring you along. We got the bacon on our 7th day. We're actually a day early. We're on day 6 because we have things we have to do tomorrow. So we went ahead and Jessica pulled this out while it's gone, rinsed it off. So the bag that we put it in with all the seasonings, all she does is give it a quick rinse. Then we let it sit here, get to room temperature, just sitting on the rack. As you can see, this stuff has changed color. If you look back in the video to when it was. When we started, it was a light pink, like normal meat. This is now turned really mahogany from all the stuff, the seasonings and the curing compound that we used. So the process now is we're gonna put the meter in here, and we're gonna smoke it with some apple wood. We're gonna smoke it to about 150 degrees, pull it off, let it cool down, and then we'll slice it up into bacon when it's cooled down. Perfect. So, like they say, like Meat Church says, wood is an ingredient. So make sure you know what wood you're using when you want to smoke. We went with apple. It's a light fruit wood. Tastes really good. The smoke does with the meat. It's a lighter smoke instead of the heavier ones like mesquite and hickory and all them. They're a lot heavier. But the apple and the cherry woods are very good for the pork, and we like them. So 150 degrees, and we'll bring you back in with the bacon. All right, we're gonna check this out. I think we're pretty close to 150 degrees. Woo!
How long does it take? This was short.
But this meter's been really, yeah, see right here? I stuck it on 150. 152, just like I said.
Oh, nice.
Look at that. Woo! Hot.
Well, you're getting like an actual flame.
Yeah. Look at that one.
5 minutes.
We'll give her a couple minutes.
Okay. Good morning, friends. So I need to get in the shower. I'm a wreck, but I want to get this going before I do any of that. And look at here. I just sloshed it around, bringing it in, but I'm going to take this whole layer of fat off, and you can totally use it in your cooking or whatever, but I don't want to can it this time. All right, this is all the fat scraped off, and then I'm not going to lose broth over that. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that either. So now I'm going to start bringing this back up to temperature.
Right here we have some, it's the next morning. We got some, this is the bacon. It's cooled off after it's been smoked. We smoked it to 150 degrees internal temperature. Now we're going to slice it up, give it a try. Is that better thickness wise?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. When we cut it too thick, I don't like how it... There's so much chaos over there with Aaron slicing the bacon. I'm preheating the broth, so I'm just gonna jump to the wood cook stove. We are still heating the house because it's still winter temperatures out here. So I'm just gonna get some butter and a little bit of oil going. We're gonna fry up some of those canned potatoes and try the bacon with a little bit of farm fresh eggs. We should have a great breakfast.
Piece for you.
That one's really good. It's so hot.
It's so good.
It's so meaty. It's not like crispy store-bought bacon. It was fantastic.
Good pack of it on that.
If you heat your cast iron pan correctly, watch this. Eggs don't stick. There you have it, Aaron's breakfast. Our home smoked bacon, those canned potatoes that we grew in our garden, and our chickens produce these eggs. All right, so I hope this works. This is boiling hot. In the canner, I've got hot water and I've already got it started heating up. And we have our things. And then we're going to just go in this beautiful broth. Okay. I have straight white vinegar in this bowl. And I have a clean rag. And that's it, into the canner. So we ended up with 13, which is perfect. Uh-oh. I've got the lid on. I need to find the arrow. And then I had the heat going just to make sure that the water was at the same temperature. And it is, because it started to boil. And we don't want that happening until we've sealed it up. Okay. So we've oiled the ren, done all the same things as before. Pull these up. Okay. Let's get her cranking. So while I finished cleaning the kitchen, this got up to a boil very quickly, and now it has vented for 10 minutes. It's just straight steam. I'm gonna put my weight on for my elevation, which is super, super low. So we only do 10 pounds. So this will come up to the 10, which is 240 pounds of pressure. To the 240 there. And then we are going to keep it there for 25 minutes. Aaron and I are literally running out the door. This went off, the dogs are going crazy, everything is nuts, and I'm just gonna leave it until we get back. It will come down to temperature, and then we'll check on the broth.
No.